All right, welcome to video 5 of our robot. So in the last video, we finished the textures for this guy here in Substance Painter. So the next step that I would like to take is just to show how my personal workflow on taking the textures and applying them to the model in Maya, right? So all I would do next is just go to File, Export Textures, and one of the things that I like to do is I like to set it to background color, so the texture doesn't bleed all the way. I just find that to be a more appealing kind of final result when you look at the textures after they've been exported, but this is just a total preference. So this is what I like to do. I like to set it to background. And then for the size, I'm going to go for the 2K. Um, the file type, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And here's the important one, the output template. The output template, this will greatly depend on what are you going to use this character for, like which game engine, which 3D package. So this is important. But normally, if I usually work with Unity. So for Unity, if I set it to universal, this is what you want to set for if you sell it like on the Unity Asset Store. You want to make sure you do both. You want to give the developers or the artist textures for the universal render pipeline, which is the URP, right, in Unity, which these games are like usually mobile games or kind of lightweight games. And then you also want to give them the HD, the Unity HD pipeline. And these are for like the Unity HD, like cinematics or like PC hardcore games, right? So just a little nugget of information from my own personal experience. When you export these out, it's good to do both, right? So I don't know, I haven't worked in Unreal, so I don't really know. So I'm just going to speak for the ones that I know. So let's go ahead and set metallic standard. And if you click on the robot here, and the reason this is called robot is because we called our texture set a robot, right? So that's what this is. You can see which, and if we go to list, we can actually see what's being exported out. So we have the normal map, we have the metallic and smoothness, the emission, which is the glowing, and then the albedo, which is the color, right? And that's all we really need for this guy. So I'm going to say export. And the other thing, obviously, is you want to go to global settings and set the location of your output directory. Like, where is this going to put the file? So I'm going to set mine. So I'll make a folder in my project called textures. And in here, I'm going to call this one a URP. And just go ahead and export. Once it's done, you can click on the open directory and see the maps that it spit out, and you can actually preview them, right? So this is our color map, our emission map, metallic, and normal. And normal has the little things that we stamped on our character. We don't really have much detail going on, but I just wanted to show you. All right, so the other thing that I would do is also create the HD one, which is, I'm just going to go for metallic standard as well. And this one is interesting because this one has base map, emissive, and normal, and then something called mask map, and that's what the Unity HD needs. So you want to make sure that mask map is included with your package if you're selling it or whatever, right? So let's go back to the settings and do, I'm going to create a new folder. So go back to my textures folder, and in here I'm gonna call, in addition to URP, I'll make another folder called HD and say open and then export. All right, and if we take a look at those, you can see what they look like, very similar, but now you have this green one, and this is the mask map. That's what it looks like. So this combines like smoothness and metallic into one mask map, and the HD package needs it. Okay, so the last thing that we should also export is go to File, Export Textures one more time, and this time let's choose output template to be a PBR metallic roughness. Now, PBR is what you would need for Maya textures, and you can use them in the game engine as well. But just let's make sure that we kind of cover everything and we have all the textures we could possibly need. So in this one, the difference is you can see you get the color, the emissive, but then you also get the height and the roughness map. So the roughness map was not present in the other export. So PBR is one more that we would require. So let's go ahead and say, let's set another output directory. And now I have HD URP folder, and I'm going to make one more and call this one PBR. And go ahead and export. All right, and then if we preview this folder, we can see what's going on in here. So this time we have our roughness map, which is this one. So roughness map is the one that will show in Maya, for example, which parts of the characters are shiny. Remember, like the white material, I want it to be really shiny. And then the dark parts are less shiny. That's the, the screen and the tire, right? So that's an important map for us. And the metallic map looks kind of boring, but it's here. All right. So now, since we have all this stuff exported, save our settings, save our scene, and let's jump into Maya. All right, so here I am in Maya, and you can see it's just a same scene we left, right? So there's nothing here in the outliner. It's just the 4 elements of our geometry, and there's no lights or anything like that. So let's start from beginning. So the first thing that I usually do right away is I select my character, and again, the entire character is going to use one texture map, so I'm going to apply one material. I'm going to right click and say favorite and go to AI standard surface, which is the Arnold material. I'm going to apply it, and once that's done, in my attribute editor I can see the name of it. If you don't see that, just right click one more time and go to material attributes, and that will bring up this panel here. And let's go ahead and name our AI standard surface material to something like AI standard robot, so I know that's my robot texture. And now if I go to the color, I can click on this button here, go to File, click on this folder, and then navigate to our textures folder. And I'm going to go inside the PBR folder, and I'm going to select the base color material, base color texture, say open, and you can see that something is happening. It's kind of dark, but that's okay. We'll play with the lighting in a minute. And next, let's go click on this button here to go back to the root, and let's grab the metalness. So File, Folder, go back to our textures folder, PBR, and metallic. Say open. And in the color balance, let's go ahead and check alpha as luminance for the metallic setting. Go back out and let's go ahead and grab the roughness map. So PBR, roughness, open. For roughness as well, let's go ahead and check alpha as luminance. That's a setting that I saw in one of the Substance Painter tutorials for metallic and roughness. It was said that this was important to check for Arnold renders, so I'm kind of following those instructions. And now we have emission. Let's go ahead and grab that. Color, file, so emissive, and the other map that we need, we can increase the weight to 1 so we can see what that looks like. Now it's not going to glow here in Maya because it doesn't really have a post processing effect like Substance Painter did with the glowing, but we still need to plug it in and we can see how that actually looks, right? You could change this value of 1 to something higher, like 5, and you can see that it gets brighter, but I'm just going to leave it at 1. And now let's go to the geometry and plug in our normal map, or our bump map, which is the same as normal map. I'm going to click on this button here, File, and I'm going to change this to tangent space normals, and then click on this button here, folder. PBR, grab our normal map, say open. And one of the things you want to do here, which is important, is in the color space, go to utility and set it to raw. So you can see that makes a big difference. All right, so now since we plugged in all the textures, we have our PBR textures, right? Let's go ahead and set up the lighting. So one of the first things I like to do is go to Arnold, Lights, and turn on our sky dome light. And if I have my lights on, you can see what that did. It created sort of a sphere. Now, if you click on your sky dome in the outliner, you can see a few settings here. One of them is the color one. So by default, you just have a sphere with the white color applied to it, and that's not very interesting. What you want to do is go to Google and download an HDRI map for your environment. So you saw we had some really cool environment maps in Substance Painter. Well, we need one in here as well. So there are a few websites that are great resources for free HDRI maps. You can just quickly look them up. I'm not gonna do that, but I already downloaded a couple that I like, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab mine. File, folder, go to my HDRI or HDR folder, and I'm going to choose just something basic like this, cloudy sky. So I downloaded these, and this is just a 2K environment map, right? So I have a few here that I like to use, but I'm just gonna go with this first one, which is just the clouds and some mountains. Let's say open. All right, so you can see the map being applied. and it's an 8.hdr file, right? So as you spin it around, it's an environment map, so you can see that it's actually being used as the light. Now, to see the effects of it on the actual model, you want to go to lighting and switch it to all lights, and you can see what that actually looks like. Another thing I like to do is I find that usually the environment map to be very distracting, so I go to show and I just turn off my lights. So now what I have is the character with the background. Now the background color is under this, let's see, where is it? Windows, settings, color settings, 3D views, and the background color that you see here is this, right? So you can change it to whatever you like. You can make it, blue, green, whatever you want. The gradient, the way you activate the gradient is you have to click Alt B on your keyboard, and that will activate different modes, and which you can control the colors in here, right? So I guess I could show you that. If I click Alt B, you can see this color is being used, right? So if I change it to like black, that's black, here's white. And then if I click Alt B again and again, you now see that the second time I hit Alt B, it switched to a gradient mode. So the gradient is light gray on top. So let's change it to like white, and the bottom is black, which is hard to see here, but you can see how this is clearly a gradient instead of the solid background. So that's how you control this. I actually like mine to be solid. I find gradient to be a little bit distracting, so I'm going to click Alt B to go back into a solid mode. And this has no relevance because this is transparent background anyways, but it's just a personal preference. So I like mine kind of dark. I'm going to say save. All right, so now you can see that we have an environment map applied to our Arnold material, right? Now we can actually take a look and see how does this actually look as a render. So let's go ahead and click on this button here. And in here, one of the things we could do is check the image size preset. So right now it's a square, which is fine. And in Arnold settings, everything is set by default, right? So the quality is sort of low. But before we pump these up or try to make them better, let's go ahead and click on our sky dome. And in the attribute editor, two things that will make the quality much better is this samples. Right now it's 1. Let's set it to 4. And then the volume samples for the shadows, let's set those to 4 as well. And without doing anything else, let's just take a look and see what we have. So let's not even touch the actual render settings yet. And let's simply go to Arnold and click render. All right, so this is what it looks like. It looks really cool, right? It's a little more kind of a real world kind of look. Another thing we could do is we can click on IPR, which will give us a real-time preview of what our image looks like. And you can see as you change it in your scene, it will actually update the IPR. So IPR is like the preview of the final render. If we don't want to see the background, we can go to in our outliner, make sure your sky dome is still selected, and under visibility there's a camera that we can just actually turn down to 0, and that will get rid of it. The reason it's black is because Maya is telling you that this is transparent. So if you actually render this out, then in post, like in Photoshop or Adobe Premiere or After Effects, you can control your background. So that's what that's the reason it's black. All right, so let's see, what else can we do? So let's do, maybe let's create a couple more lights and see if we can make this even more interesting. So if I zoom out, let's turn our lights back on. And besides just the sky dome, maybe let's apply, one or two more. I'm gonna go to lights and do a area light. And if I have my area light selected, if I choose the move tool, I can see where it is. And in my scene currently, it's very small. I think this has something to do with my working units. I'm set to centimeters, which is fine, but I can just scale this up so I can see a little better. And maybe we can position it. Now think of this as like a real movie set. You have an actual light that's being positioned a certain way and it's pointing to your character. And right now we can't see any effects of it. That's because it's too weak. Because of my units, my intensity units are messed up. So I actually have to see any result of this light, I really need to multiply it a lot. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're still not sure how your light is affecting your model, you can click on this button here, the light editor. And in the light editor, you have a control over each light. So for the sky dome, let's turn it off for a second. And now we can see, with the area light being the only one selected, we can see how it actually affects our model, right? So maybe if I turn this to like 5, I can see the result. And then of course now if you rotate it, you can see what it's actually doing. So like if you wanted to set up a really cool rim light, a rim light is something you position behind the character, right? So maybe something like that. And maybe we can turn this up even more. So this would be something like this would create a rim light. So essentially just like an edge light, right? Now if we turn our sky dome back on and maybe turn the intensity down a little bit, you can see how the rim light comes into play. So this is not going to be a lighting tutorial either, so I'm just showing you sort of the basics of my process. Another thing that you could do, because we set this to preset of 1K, right, our preview, we can turn this up if we wanted to. But if you wanted to see what that actually looks like, you can turn on this button here, and that will show you that this area is the one that's actually being rendered. So that's useful for when you actually want to be sure that you're utilizing all your space as efficiently as possible. If I click render, let's take a look at what we have. And now under window, maybe I can say frame all so I can see what that looks like. All right, so it's kind of hard to tell because there's no background. So I'm going to actually turn my background on and try this again. The reason it's dark is because if you remember, in my light editor, I actually turned the sky dome way down. If I put this back at 1, you can see that that makes it bright again. And at this point, it's just a matter of going back and forth and getting this looking pretty. All right, so this is sort of the basics of setting up the lights here in Maya. So one of the other things you can do is change the rotation of your environment. As you change the rotation, just like in Substance Painter, this will greatly change the way your character looks. So keep that in mind. And let's turn the lights off, and we can turn the wireframe off. All right, so one other thing that is kind of cool to play with is you have this code settings, and if you change the weight of the code, you can see how the roughness is being affected. So if I pump this up, you can clearly see how it's giving you a different look, right? It has a much better, more detail, especially because in Substance Painter, I chose pure white and pure black. It's a little bit hard for Arnold to render. And normally, actually, you don't want to do pure black when you're doing in Substance Painter. You want to do like one of the tricks is do like a grayish black. That always is better for textures because it brings better detail. So I actually I don't think I did that. And if you turn the code on, in our case, because we have pure whites and pure blacks, this is a cool way to kind of pump the glossiness a little bit, the reflection. So that's cool. And the other thing I wanted to do is if I do a render, this is what my character looks like right now. And to make it more colorful or more saturated, one other trick we could do is go to settings, and in the Arnold render settings, there's something called imagers, and then here these are the post effects that you can play with. So one of them, for example, if I choose color correct, I have something called saturation, so I can pump this all the way up, and right away, if I render this, you can see how the colors are a lot more vibrant, and even the emission map looks a little bit better. So that's really cool. Another thing that we could do is add maybe like a lens effect, and in the lens effect, we even have a bloom, just like in Substance Painter. So if we turn this on a little bit, you can see that Arnold is now rendering kind of a bloom effect right over where the light hits the character. So that's really cool. I mean, we can, instead of 0.2, let's really blow it up so we can see the difference, right? So I'm going to set it kind of low. You also have this setting if you want to do some more tricks. So keep in mind, in addition to setting up your lights and materials, you also have some post stuff you can play with when exporting out animations or final renders of your characters. So I hope you found this useful. In the next video, let's maybe take a few moments to play with some of the animation stuff, and maybe just do some basic fun animations like spin the wheel, and maybe have his head rotated. All right. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you next video.